How important is legacy to you? DC thought it was pretty important enough that they were, at least Dan Didio was proposing his G5 whole generations line and really wanted to lean into the idea of legacy and kind of offspring of characters and everything else. But there's a conflict there, at least to some extent, because at the same time, a lot of the comic publishers do not want characters married, having children, being pregnant. These are things that generally they try and avoid. So, how exactly is this generations thing going to work exactly? Well, let's talk about it. Hey everybody, this is Perch. By the way, you could very quickly answer my initial question and say, well, you don't need children in the mix. You just have kind of the some younger person take on the mantle of the classic superhero, and they just go with it. Sure, that's the legacy of the name, the legacy of the powers, whatever it happens to be. But there's another legacy at play, and that's the legacy of children and family, and the idea that these generations of characters, it kind of can be bigger. And we know that the fans will respond well to this if done right. I think the whole Super Sons, what they did with Damien and with John Kent and kind of all those areas, I mean, that was well received. I think the Spider-Man, where they delved into that world with kind of Mary Jane and the daughter with powers, kind of that whole area. Um, Fans tend to go for that kind of stuff. And I think that if when Dan Didio was kind of starting off with 5G or G5 and kind of whatever plans those were supposed to be to kind of paint a picture of the future of where all these characters were going to go and what the new generation would look like, it's not a bad idea. In fact, there's decades of a track record proving that people do like this stuff. The Days of the Future Past storyline that Marvel put out, and the X-Men would frequently do, is they travel in the future and they find out who had kids and who these new younger heroes are and how's the torch been passed and all the rest. Those are very popular storylines, and they're ones that the comic companies like to go back to on a regular basis. But but at the same time, it feels like the comic publishers almost kind of defeat themselves with it, because they will do things like say, we don't want the characters to get married, we don't want the characters to progress, we want things to kind of be stuck in their idealized state forever. Like Peter Parker, we want him to, he needs to kind of stay as that, hapless, bad Parker Luck bachelor, and all the rest. There's this drive to kind of keep things that way. Yet at the same time, we want, comic publishers are very kind of excited and thrilled by the idea of showing what the next generation looks like. Their solution to that typically is to bring in things like Amadeus Cho or Riri Williams or Nadia Pym or someplace. And in most cases, those aren't, the children of heroes. They're just, people who kind of wandered around and maybe they're smarter than, like Riri is smarter than Tony. And so therefore she's going to be an even better hero someday, but she's got to learn the ropes and all the rest. So I think that some of that's fine. Granted, Nadia Pym did have a relation to Hank Pym, but that's not something they bring up or do much with. Why do we get both at once? Well, and I guess the bigger question is, and now we get into this a little bit, is does legacy really matter? I think the publishers often have this belief. You hear it at cons, you hear it on panels, and everything else, that a lot of their fan base is one day going to wake up and go, we're tired of these old characters, we're tired of these people we've seen kind of over and over and over before. We want new. We want to see what the next generation looks like. We want something fresher, more exciting. If you're ever going to reach that younger audience we want, then the heroes need to look younger too. Beyond the fact that I think that's all bullshit, in general, I think people just want to show up for a good story. I have very, very hard pressed, and I always have been skeptical about the idea that a younger reader is going to pick up a comic and go, I don't know. I mean, Storm looks like she's in her 30s. I'm not reading this. I'd love to get into the Black Panther, but he's No, he's older. We need to. I really want to see somebody like if you could give him a skateboard and he's like 16, then that's a comic I'll sign up for. But not this old man Black Panther. I think people just show up and they're like, this is a cool comic. This is a cool hero. I don't know if they really think about the age unless you've got like Steve Rogers aged up to like 80 running around trying to be a superhero, and that'd be crazy. You wouldn't do that. So, but how much does legacy really matter to you? Does is this something that you pine for? Is this something that you want to see what the next group of X-Men are going to look like, or are you happy just seeing the X-Men? I think that's the other kind of interesting part is oftentimes when people say legacy, the other thing they're saying is, we know you're probably sick of the Avengers as they've been, or the X-Men as they've been, or Batman as he's been. So, we know that we need to retire that at some point. So we give you that younger, newer, fresher Batman that is accessible that you want because you're tired of old man Batman. And my question is anyone tired of old man Batman? Like, as long as Batman's out there kicking ass, do you really care how old he is? Does that drive you in any kind of way? I think that's one of those myths that is in comics that people say a lot, but it doesn't necessarily pan out to anything truthful. I think it just becomes this thing that people use as an excuse maybe to do the comics they really want to do, or to divorce themselves to old continuity and do something out of the box where they have no rules. I don't know for sure why people get so hung up on this idea of we have to age up and bring in this next generation. But all I do know is that by and large, it's not been successful when they've done this. Most of these attempts have failed. The idea of we have to bring in a younger group. I mean, they rarely sell as well the original, and it feels like we always get back to the same place anyway, which is it's like, well, we tried that for a while, but now here's Bruce Wayne again. He's back and he's doing Batman stuff. So why bother in the first place? I would argue. But so the question is posed to you: do you care about legacy? Does it matter? And then on top of that, is it preventing you from buying comics? And when you get it, are you getting what you're looking for? Are you getting true kind of new characters, new fresh ideas, and fresh momentum? How does legacy play out, or does it just feel like a big sales, kind of gimmick, and you wish it would go away? Let me know in the comments below. Hey, subscribe. If you like the content, please do subscribe. I would appreciate it. Follow me on social media or shoot me an email at comics with an S, perch at gmail.com. Most importantly, thanks for listening.